Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is Jesse Heller. I'm the marketing director at Fay Business Systems Group. You're joining our top Sugar CRM sales tweaks for your CRM platform. Um, Presenting for us today, we've got Josh Sweeney on the line. Josh is a senior consultant at Fay BSG. Hey Josh, how's it going today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. We're happy to have you here presenting to us today. Just by way of an introduction, an agenda, we're going to just remind you about Fate Business Systems Group real quick, and then Josh is going to take us through the presentation. Most of you guys are aware who we are. We've been around in the sugar space for a while. We're one of the leading sugar partners. We're based out of Los Angeles, but we've got offices all over the place. We've got Josh. He's out in Atlanta. And we focus on sugar implementations, all things sugar related, as well as a handful of other platforms that we think complement the CRM environment. We've done tons of successful integrations in sugar, and we've received a bunch of cool awards. Let's go to the next slide. Some of the cool sugar related products we've built you can see here. So we've built all kinds of standalone integrations to connect different platforms into your sugar instance, and centered there is our newest product that we released this year at SugarCon. It's called Sugar Mobile E. It has taken the Sugar mobile app that exists and added all kinds of cool new functionality to it, including geo mapping. You can see your contacts and prospects and leads based on where you are, see who's closest around you and cool stuff like that. It's a pretty cool product. You should check it out on our website, sugarmobileenhanced.com. With that, Josh, I'm going to pass it over to you. And I would just reiterate, as we always do, if you guys have any questions throughout today's presentation, go ahead and put them in the chat box. I'll get them over to Josh as they come in, and I'll be monitoring those. So with that, Josh, take it away, man.
All right. Thank you for that, Jesse. So today we're going to be going over some of the top Sugar CRM sales tweaks that we do for clients. And what I really want to show you is things that we see are very underutilized in Sugar from a lot of the customers that we work with. The items that I'm going to go over today are focused on sales for salespeople and sales managers, meaning how do we give you the data as a salesperson that you need to make sure you're building on the relationship, following up with leads, managing opportunities, and not letting things drop through the cracks, as well as sales information that management needs for the oversight and management of the business and to help send out those reminders. Everything that I'm going to show you today is configurable, meaning it can be done in studio by yourself, by your admin, by us, or whoever you choose to do the work. And it takes no code customizations. So the first thing I'm going to go over is just a highlight of the various areas that I'm going to review, and you'll see these woven throughout the context of the presentation. So we're going to dive into some reports, but we're going to dive into some very special reports using calculated fields that we add for a lot of our customers. And then with those calculated fields, we're going to leverage workflows in the advanced workflow engine to show you how, in addition to those calculated fields, you can use all of Sugar's features together to make sure that sales is the best that it can be. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the calculated fields, just to give you a little bit of context around what those are, because everybody may not be using them. A few years ago, Sugar introduced the concept of a calculated field, which means I can add a field to SugarCRM in Studio, and I can write a formula for it to automatically show or calculate data. So a common area would be, or a common use for this would be, take two numbers, add them together. Take the amount on a quote, divide it by a certain fraction, and set a customer tier. There's all kinds of things that you can do with calculated fields. With that, I'm going to show you one of the calculated fields and what that would look like visually and how we would use that. So the first calculated field I'm going to show you, or actually I'm going to go ahead and show you two. Down in the sales metrics section or panel in Sugar, I'm on a lead record here. You're going to see two calculated fields. Again, both of these were made in Studio with just a little formula that you put into the calculated field section. The first one on the left, which doesn't have the red box, is the date of last call. So what we did here was we built a formula that looks at all of the call records that have been logged for this lead to tell you the last time somebody logged a call on this lead. On the right, you have a different variation of similar data, which is the call count. And the call count can be used in a number of different ways. So when you look at management and sales, one of the things that happens is you may have an overabundance of leads. And all of these leads are coming in, or you've imported a list of leads and you're distributing those out, and the salesperson has to stay on top of those. Well, one easy thing that you can do is you can use the SugarCRM list view and add the call count to that list and quickly show all of the leads assigned to them with a call count of 0. And they're going to know which leads they haven't gotten to. You can also look at things like the date of last call. So I know for a lot of clients that we have, it's very important to get to a new lead extremely quickly and stay on top of that until it either is converted or marked as dead or whatever the closing status would be. So here's two visual representations of some calculated fields that you can build in a few minutes in SugarCRM. The way that those get utilized is in reporting. One way that this is visualized for a sales manager or even a salesperson is going to be this call count dashlet. So what I did in addition to adding the call count is I built out this dashlet, and this dashlet shows me all of the leads by call count. So I can quickly see at a glance that I have 189 leads in the system with a call count of 0. I have 20 or just under 20 with a call count of 1, and I have a couple with 3. Now, this is going to tell you multiple different pieces of information from a management perspective and from a personal rep perspective. If I'm a rep, I'm going to look at this and know that I have a lot of leads that I need to follow up on and I need to get really busy. I can also see that the majority of my leads that I have in the system only get one phone call. So as a manager, you can look at this and say, well, this person needs to get on top of his leads and start making phone calls. Or 2, you can also look at the section that has 1 and note that it doesn't appear that this person is putting in as many touch points as you might need before moving on to the next lead. So there's various methodologies on how people follow up with leads or opportunities, and this is going to give you some indication of what that is. What you may not want to see is if you have a long lead qualification process and you're using leads heavily, you probably don't want to see that they're not calling them more than one time. Now, the inverse could be you have a very short lead qualification process and you generally only call them once and then they get converted very quickly, and that's how you do it. So this wouldn't be an issue. But this was created using SugarCRM reports, and you'd be able to slice and dice this for any different amount of data that you wanted. So you could do leads by call count like I see here. You could do leads by call count for each team member, so it could have a person's name next to each one, or any other variation of data that you'd like to see. So that's a really common customization around the call count. The other interesting thing that you get is in the latest version of Sugar, you get drill down charts. So this big blue bar that you're seeing, if I were to click that bar in Sugar 7.10, the latest version, I would see this drill down section. So what it would do is I'd click that bar, it would move that bar and chart over to the intelligence panel, and then it would give me a list of all of those leads that only had, or that had 0 calls logged to them. So then I could quickly and easily follow up as a manager and walk through those and do any data analysis, or I could use it as a target call list as a salesperson. So one cool thing to check out here, in addition to the calculated fields and being able to use reporting to report on the call count and other calculated fields, would be to utilize those new drill down report features. It's also important to keep in mind that this can be used for any module in Sugar. So I'm just representing this on leads as an example, but if you want to use this from a BDR or business development rep perspective or lead qualification rep perspective, you would be on the leads module. You could do the same thing on the opportunities module for your inside or outside sales team. A lot of customers and clients also use this at the contact level, so they can see who got contacted and when, and where might we be dropping the ball from an account management perspective. So this one metric around call count and the other one I showed you around the last call date can really be utilized across the organization to say, you know, how good are we at following up on leads? How good is our account management team at staying in touch with the contacts and clients that we have? And how good are we staying in touch with opportunities that are currently in play? So there's all kinds of ways to use those calculated fields. The next thing I'm going to show you is just another example of reporting. So with that, I've turned it into a pie chart. So this is call count per rep. So what I did was I actually ran a report and said, give me all of the calls that are zero, I should say 0 call count per rep. And this gives me a pie chart of just how many reps have 0. If this was a live demo, I would hover over these. I would be able to get a number next to that. I'd also be able to click into that pie chart and drill down. The one on the right is a different representation of a similar set of data, but it's specifically for Jim. So the other underutilized feature we see from a sales management perspective is dashboards that represent the details for each sales member on the team. So you could build out these 2 dashlets with an individual's name, and you could have multiple different dashboards. So you could have a dashboard for Jim, you could have a dashboard for Sally, and whoever it might be, so that you can quickly parse through and analyze this data either during a team meeting or during one-on-ones on a recurring basis. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use some of those features from a filter perspective. So a lot of people like to come up with filters so that they have a list. A salesperson wants to say, give me everybody with a call count of 0, and I'm going to go follow up through that list, and I want to see them come off the list, right? And some people use target lists. With SugarCRM, we've converted over to using filters for this. So what I did here was I built a filter that utilized that call count calculated field, and it's going to give me every lead that has a call count of 0. So all I have to do now is click into one of these names, go ahead and make that phone call and log the call. When I go back to this screen in this filter, that call will have been logged, the call count will go up to 1, and then it will come off the list. So it's a really easy way to give people a list of targets that they need to follow up on. Same thing with the date. You could have used a date range instead of a call count for that last contacted date that I showed you earlier, and you'd be able to run a list to contact every, let's say, contact in the system that's related to a customer for account management. So using those filters to create lists is another underutilized feature that I see. It's an easy way to create lists for calls and all kinds of other data that's in the system. So what I've gone through a little bit is just the visualization options around how you can see and utilize that call count calculated field. So we showed a little bit about the dashlets. How can you get it into a dashlet so you can see that information on demand? How do you see it in the intelligence panel through the drill through? Some of the reports that you saw, those reports that I showed you can be scheduled or manually run. So you can use the report schedule in Sugar to have that automatically drop in your email box, whether you're a salesperson or sales manager, and a little bit about filtering in those list views on that call count. The last thing that I wanted to highlight that's an underutilized feature is the advanced workflow engine. So in the advanced workflow engine, you can really build out a lot of powerful workflows to automate the follow-up. So from what I've shown you so far, you would have to look at that call count. A manager would have to go look at it as a chart. They'd have to go over to the salesperson or email the salesperson, whatever it might be, talk about it during the one-on-one. And a lot of that is a manual process. And as a sales team, we try to get away from manual processes to increase efficiency. So what I've built here is I've built a workflow that actually uses that one call count field. And if you walk through this, from the green circle over here on the left, it says a new lead's created. So what it does is it looks at a new lead that gets created. It waits a day. So it's basically giving that sales rep 24 hours to make that call. So you have some time element on expectation for that sales rep. And then once it's been created, he gets a day, and it's going to check the call count. If the call count's greater than 0, so there's an orange diamond that checks the call count. If it's greater than 0, then it's going to end this workflow because he followed up within 24 hours, and we're happy with that, at least for this workflow. If they didn't, then what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the top path where it has a little alert salesperson circle, and that's actually going to send a message to him. So it's going to wait a day. It's going to check and say the call count's still 0. Hey, salesperson, we just wanted to remind you that you got this new lead, and we need you to follow up on it. Right? We got to jump on it. Our SLA or our sales commitment is to follow up on new leads within 24 hours. So then what it does is it's notified them, and it waits 2 more days, and it checks the call count again. If the call count's greater than 0, then the salesperson got the alert, took action, which is what we want, what we would like. If they didn't, then it can escalate to the manager. So it says alert manager over on the right-hand side in the blue circle. And so it's going to alert that manager, and then it's going to end this event. And this is actually a really simple workflow in the Sugar Advanced Workflow Engine. So you get away from having to have a manager run those manual reports, go to that chart every day, because the salespeople in this system would automatically be getting alerted. And sometimes that's half the battle, right? It's not that somebody's not doing what they're supposed to, it's that they got overwhelmed, or they're working on a big opportunity and it slipped through the cracks, or you just purchased a huge list and they have a lot to go through. There's all kinds of reasons this can happen. But what we've seen is this one alert has actually taken a lot of work off of sales managers, and it's taken a lot of thought work off of the sales rep to have to go remember who and when and other details, because they see the 0, it alerts them, and they are able to go ahead and follow up on that call. So that's one way that you can use the SugarCRM workflows. And we see all kinds of other workflows where we can automatically remind them again. We can alert to a manager. I've seen other organizations that say, well, we'll check it again. We give them 24 hours. If they don't follow up, we give them another 24 hours, and then we're going to put it back in and round robin it to the group again for somebody else to follow up with. So there's all kinds of ways to manage that and use SugarCRM workflow to take work off of your plate. The last thing that I'm going to run through is just a little bit more about calculated fields. So these are used all different ways in Sugar to drive certain actions, to give you certain data that you need. And I use the example of call count, because this is only a 30-minute webinar and it's a lot to get through. So I stuck with one, which is call count. The other common fields that we see that are calculated are things like last activity date. So an activity would be defined as, give me the date that the last date that either a meeting, a call, or an email was logged. An activity for you, if it was not meeting, call, and email, if it was just meeting or call was logged, then we could use that as activity date. It gets calculated however you build out the formula. So a lot of customers are going to want to see, when was that last activity date. Each one puts more value, more or less value on different activities. So my personal opinion is that everybody sends emails, and while it's staying in touch, a call is much more friendly, and a Zoom meeting or a web meeting where actually sharing your camera actually builds a lot more rapport. And at the end of the day, this is relationship management. So with each one of those, you may want to call out different activities that you need as part of your sales process. So you'll see other things like last call date. So we're specifically calling out that we want people on the phone and picking up the phone, and that maybe an email doesn't really count for us. You have activity count. So you can just count all activities instead of calls. So again, different variations for different customer needs. And this is, of course, dependent on whether you're in leads or opportunities, cases, whatever it might be. Days since last call. And then you get into more complex ones like time until engaged. Now, I don't have that on here, but what some people will do is they will take the time between certain actions and they'll calculate the difference. So for example, if I have a field such as the date of first call, and I have the date created on the lead, I can tell you the average time it takes for sales reps using reporting. I can tell you the average time it takes for sales reps to call a lead. So I can use calculated fields to calculate the time span in between two date or date time fields. So that's a more complex one that's a little bit outside the scope of this webinar. But the main goal here was just to show you some of the underutilized features that are available in Sugar that just take a little bit of time and configuration and no code changes. So with that, Jesse, do we have any questions?
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, we did actually. Any of the features that you showed today available in an on-demand environment?
These are all on-demand compatible. So this will work in on-demand. These are all done using Studio in the admin panel, reports, or the workflow engine. So they're all available.
Okay, great, thanks. The other question was if they were interested in exploring, time frame on how long it would take to get some help setting some of these up. What do you generally recommend as an acceptable time frame to get these up and running for our sugar instance?
So it just depends on how many you want. So, the goal for you would be to say, what kind of metrics am I looking for? And then once you come up with a list, then you can go to your admin or you can come to us and we'll be able to give you an estimate on that. But most of them don't take very long. I think to set this up was, definitely under, a few hours for me. And, we do them very quickly. We do them often. So we have some of these calculations available.
All right, great. Thanks, Josh.